Philco's company. Hello, everybody. This is my name is Philco Tutulanium, or you could call me Phil Tutes for short. Okay. First thing we're going to talk about is a priori reasoning versus a posteriori reasoning. A priori is completely independent of the senses. You don't need to rely on your senses at all. This is purely rational. A posteriori is the opposite. It's dependent on the senses. So, for example, a priori would be something like, let's say, 2 plus 2 equals 4. A posteriori, for example, would be, is there money in pocket? I need to check my pocket. No, there's no money in pocket. Okay, next thing we're going to talk about is this man named Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas figured that there were 5 ways to prove God's existence. Alright, but we're only going to go over 3. So let's number 1, 2, 3. Whoops. First one is motion. First one is motion. His argument was of the unmoved mover. He says everything is in motion, that the natural state of an object is only at rest, and everything is time is moving infinitely forward in one direction. And he's saying that there is an unmoved mover. There's a mover at the start that began the whole motion forward, and that must be God. His next was causality. This argument is essentially the same as the motion argument. He's saying that there is an infinite forwardness, there is a constant causality going on, which means there must have been a beginning cause, the first cause, and that uncaused cause was God. His last argument that we're going to go over is called governance. Governance of the world. Governance of the world. This argument is essentially intelligent design, meaning that the laws of the universe are so complex that they are so infinitely incomprehensible that there must have been a creator. There must have been a designer. And that designer being God. That designer must have been God, the governance, the governor, the creator of the world, of these laws. Now there are some counter-arguments to these. The first one, the counter-argument of motion. The counter-argument of motion being Newton. Okay, this one is not the third one. That's my bad. I meant to say, and I meant to change this as a 5. The first counter-argument to motion was Newton. Newton said the natural state of an object is both at rest and in motion, and nothing is needed to start time. So said Newton. Causality, the unmoved or the uncaused cause, was the Big Bang. It doesn't necessarily have to be God. For the third one, the governance of the being, evolution explains this perfectly. And there doesn't need to be a designer. There is a form of the argument for the governance of the world called Paley's Watch. Paley's Watch being that if Paley said that if we're on a beach, for example, and we were to come across a watch, and we had never seen a watch before, we would assume that there was a creator, that there was a designer of the watch. We wouldn't say that this watch occurred naturally. The counter-argument to Paley's Watch was put forth by Hume, and Hume agreed with Paley, but he said that we wouldn't assume there to be one creator, that there would be numerous creators. There would be a creator for the specific cogs. There would be a creator for creating the metal. There would be different creators for the different aspects of the watch. And if that's the case, then there wouldn't be one God, one creator, but there would be several. So that was Hume's counter-argument to Paley's Watch, and yeah. Tutes. Tutes. Alright, I'm Phil Tutes, and I'm going to talk about something else. I'm going to talk about a guy named Rene, Descartes. Rene Descartes. He is considered to be the father of modern philosophy because of his emphasis on epistemology, whereas before there was an emphasis rather on metaphysics. He wasn't just a philosopher either. He was also an anatomist, and he is considered the creator, the founder of geometry. That's pretty cool. He came up with a book on meditations, and where he discussed several of his own meditations on philosophy. The first meditation was called What Can Be Called Into Doubt. What can be called into doubt? And he came up in this meditation with methods of doubt. These methods of doubt were: one, you cannot trust your senses. Another one was waking versus dreaming. We can't differentiate between the waking state and the dreaming state. Therefore, we should call into doubt constantly whether or not we are waking. We are in a waking state or a dreaming state. Another method of doubt is called the evil genius. That there could constantly be this outward source, this external source that is deceiving you and is distorting your a priori knowledge, and making it false. And Descartes figured that with all these things that can be called into doubt, he couldn't find a solid foundation for existence. He couldn't find a solid foundation of knowledge because of all these things that can be called into doubt, which leads into the second meditation, which he concluded that that to be able to doubt all of these things, that must mean that he is thinking, that he knows, because he can call all this stuff into doubt, that he knows that he himself must exist, because he knows that he is able to doubt all of this. And he came up with his cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. He, by thinking, he concludes that he exists. He infers he exists by inferring. And he knows he's thinking by the end, by the inference becoming, I am, I exist. So wrap your head around that. Phil Tutes. Yeah. Alright. Phil Tutes is going to talk next about a thing called monism. That's M-O-N-I-S-M. Monism. This is basically a metaphysical theory that there is only one kind of stuff in the universe. Only one. Hence the monism, which etymologically goes back to the whole idea of one, monism. This other metaphysical theory is called materialism, which is it's a metaphysical theory that says that material objects are the only thing that exist. That's the only thing that is real. There's nothing else. There's nothing beyond. There's nothing transcendent. There is only the material world. There is another theory called idealism, which I guess you could say that it's the opposite of materialism. It's that non-physical things are the only things that exist. Only the stuff that we would consider transcendent are the only things that exist. There is another theory called dualism, which is believing that there are only two types of things. Now, Descartes, we talked about earlier, he was a dualist. He believed that the only two things that existed were body and soul. The soul was the thinking thing that is controlled by the physical body. The physical body is the thinking thing that controls. That's what I said. The soul was the thinking thing that controlled the physical body. I said soul was the thinking thing that controlled the physical body. Soul was the thinking. Did I say soul was physical thing? I meant soul was thinking thing that controlled the physical body. I'm sorry, Phil Tutes made a mistake. I'm going to make that clear. Soul is the thinking thing, not the physical thing. Is the thinking thing Oh, shit. Yeah, no. So it's the thinking thing that controls the physical body. Alright? Okay. Clear? Okay, good. And this view of dualism, that the soul is the thinking thing that controls the physical body, is known as the Cartesian dualism. And there's one more theory called pluralism, which is somewhat similar to dualism, except dualism being two things, pluralism is more than two. You believe that there are more than two types of things that exist. Hey, Phil Tutes is back. Alright, next thing we're going to talk about is a man named George Berkeley. George Berkeley. Now, Berkeley was an idealist. He said that bodies exist, but they are not physical things. He said that the world is consciousness. He said our consciousness is structured in a way in which we can't know ourselves. That the self is aware of ideas, but it is not itself. So the body is only what it is aware of. And he came up with a famous phrase, which was esse est percipi, which means to be is to be perceived. And to the question, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, doesn't make it sound, Berkeley would say, what forest? Because he would say that since the forest itself wasn't even perceived, why would there be a forest? What forest is there? He said that dreams only exist if you perceive them, going along the lines of esse est percipi. Idealist. Tutes. Alright, we're going to talk about one more thing. It's about a guy named David Hume. David Hume. David Hume believed that the self is a metaphysical mirage, that there can be no knowledge of the self. He believed that the self was just a bundle of perception. He's very like Berkeley in this way, except David Hume was a materialist, meaning he believed that the material objects were the only thing that existed, that there was nothing transcendent. However, the difference being that David Hume said that we can't know the material, or we can't know specifically what the material world is, or I should say more specifically probably that what makes the material world is the perceptions of it. That's the only thing that makes the material world, and there's nothing transcendent about it. There's nothing outside. That is the material world. Bill Tutes.